again, boys and girls. So this week's plan is to work on the MG again, and I think we're going to get the gauges wired this time. And with that being said, as we go through them, you're going to notice there's going to be one noticeable gauge missing. And well, it was kind of by accident, and kind of now has turned into a joke to where I don't know if I want to put it in, just because, well, yeah. I'd have to admit that it was a 100% mistake and not a intentional mistake. You won't see a fuel gauge anywhere in the dash, because I kind of forgot to order one. I ordered everything else. So, but as I told my buddy Ryan that I got the car off of, I was like, well, you have to have an MG with a working fuel gauge anyway, so what's this one got? It don't need one, it'll be fine. At least that's the excuse I'm going with. I have done a little bit of the work off camera, and that's because it's something I need to do for multiple systems in the car. And I wanted to make sure I had it right, so I did it. I figured I can explain to you what I did. And from there, then we can just focus on the one system we want to work on this week in this car. And then we can move on to the next one and the next one. So yeah, let's get into that. So the work that I kind of jumped ahead of you guys on and did is I wired in 3 relays. We're going to use one for like the lights, one for all the like all the gauges and stuff, and the horn. I think that all falls onto one. And then the other one will be, I think, like radio and stuff. I got to see exactly what in that box is all connected together because I don't remember. That's going to kind of determine what's what. So, because I think one of these does like that one, that one, that one, and that one. And another one does this one, and this one. Another one does this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then the last one does this one. Or maybe it's this one. I can't remember. I got to look at it. I know for sure these 3 are on one. This one I think is on right here with the lights, the horn, the brakes are all one. And then the fan, accessory, and spare is one. Turn, radio, wipers, and dash is another, I do believe. So the one we're going to focus on, at least this time, is going to have the lights, or no, the wipers, dash, all that. We're going to worry about the lights next time, because that is going to probably be a very involved video where like we do the brake lights one time and then we do the headlights another time, because that is going to get very in-depth very quick, and that's going to be a lot of wiring to get like the entirety of the brake lights to work. The brake lights, tail lights, turn signals. Well, turn signals is going to be its own video altogether. I think brake lights, tail lights, headlights might all be one video, and then the rest of them will be another. So, because turn signals is going to be a very fun thing for me to figure out, because I've got an entire another component to add in for that. So, yeah. So let me show you what gauges we're going to worry about today. So the gauges we have to worry about are volt, the tach. The oil pressure gauge is mechanical and already works, but we need to wire in lighting for it. And the temp gauge over there. The temp gauge is electric, not mechanical, because I ordered an electric gauge for it. I'm hoping that I can get away with using the stock temp gauge here, because for obvious reasons, I'm afraid to touch it. So I'm hoping I can get away with using what's there for that gauge. We're going to find out. If not, we will hopefully get it out of there without doing any damage and get a different one in. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath on it. I'm really hoping it just works. And then the last gauge we're going to worry about is the speedometer. We're getting it wired in, because this is a GPS speedometer, not a cable-driven or transmission-driven at all speedometer. And I think all we're going to do is just run the wiring to where we know we can mount it up here and worry about it from there. Because running the wiring for it is very simple, because it is just literally a USB cable with an older style USB end on it. So that's not going to be hard to do. And the other end just plugs into a cigarette lighter. So we are going to hide a cigarette lighter behind the dash for it and all that. Because that's just going to be simpler. And it keeps the options open, like if something would go wrong with that one, I can order a new one. It's a simple unplug the USB cable, plug in a different USB cable if needed, and continue on with my day. Not a big deal to do anything with. And keeping it up here and in the open means I know I can see it, and it's just easier. And that way, then if I do want to move it between cars, I have it right there. I can just pick it up and walk away with it. So that being said, I do want everything else hidden behind the dashboard, though. So yeah, all right. Enough rambling. Let's show you how everything works so far. All right. So basically, what we're using to trigger most of this stuff is a very basic 4-pin relay. Let me see if I can get one of these out. This is info that will be good for later too, if one of them go bad. Oh. Well, I'm glad I did it in a way that makes them just as hard to get out as every other relay in every other car I own. Awesome. So, there's 4 pins. There's one here in the front, one on each side, and one back here. Basically, all that's going on is you've got 3 direct power wires, 3 wires that run to your keyed ignition as an indirect powered switch. So what it does is that will, when you turn the key on, it sends 12 volts. See? Put the key in the ignition. Then when I turn the key, watch that little light right there. I think the light come unhooked. Hang on. Alright, let's try this again. So when I turn the key on, that light comes on. Now all that light's signifying and showing you right now, and when I start it, it goes off, but it comes right back on. And then when I shut the key off, it turns off. And when I switch it over to accessory, it all comes right back. So, all that's showing you is that the key is turning it on by sending 12 volts to a separate pin on this connector, or on this relay. So these ones turn it on, these ones send it direct power, like constant power. Right here it's grounded. Now this wire, all this wire is, well, this is the power out from the relay to the wire in the fuse box, to the power wire in the fuse box. So each one of these will get hooked to one of them. And then from there, we will bring the wiring from here to whatever we're trying to do. So there's going to be one power wire here for the gauges, one power wire here for the lights and all that. We'll get those run to those switches probably today, because as we got to do this much lighting to go with the gauges. So, because only one of the gauges doesn't need any lights run to it at all, and that would be the speedometer. So, and the speedometer's got a little bit more that makes it stay place. Not much, ironically. Hey, we're going to try that again since I apparently didn't record any of it. But that speedo does have a little bit more that mounts it. And I'll show you that here in Black Pearl, because I have one in here as well. It is right there, and all it has mounting it is just this kind of like sticky little pad thing that once it sets in place, it seems to stay fairly well. I do think this car getting hot inside every once in a while does help that fact, but then from there the power wire just runs down and is plugged into the cigarette lighter, and it does its thing. It does seem to keep up fairly well, no matter how vigorously we'll say you're driving. No issues in Pearl. I'm not going to say how fast we've had it up to, but it will definitely read up to 75 mile an hour on the highway or other places in second gear. Yeah. But so that's going to work really well in Pearl and in G over here. Now eventually, when we move on to this and the Nova, I would like to get something that looks a little bit better and actual like dash mounted. So what are you doing? You watching your cartoons? Yeah. Being good?
Yes.
Are you sure?
She is.
That's a first. Once we get onto those cars, we're going to try to find something a little bit better than that. But I'm not really worried about that right now. So, trying to remember everything I was trying to tell you guys before I realized I wasn't filming. Irritates the hell out of me because I was like, oh, I explained all this really well. I never hit record. Son of a. Anyway. I think what we're going to do first is we got to get the power wires ran and hooked up for everything. And then we will pinpoint exactly which one needs to be used today. And we're actually going to label the front of them so we know which each one is. The relays. The front of the relays. There we go. Words. Words are great. Okay, so I've dug through the fuse box. This blue wire is the power wire for the lights, and this one is the power wire for all the gauges, or dash. And all it says is dash. There isn't one that specifically says gauges. The dash power wire I'm going to use as the power wire for the gauges and stuff. I may also splice, I don't know, one of these other ones is going to turn into the accessory wire here, may turn into a cigarette lighter wire. And then obviously the radio will be the radio. The wiper one won't be used. The fan one won't be used. I don't believe I really have a use for the relay either, since we have the other three. The horn I will definitely use somehow. I just don't know how yet. Brakes will be used. So we've got way more than we need, and I'm actually overcomplicating it for how it was. So, which is probably no surprise to some people. Who's completely ignoring me right now.
I'm on lunch break. Why would I listen?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring those two wires over to here. The blue wire will go to here, and that is to send power to the lights from the connection on the other side for parking, high and low. Then we got a ground here we got to connect. Then each one of these has a power in and an out on each of these right here, and with this. This wire right here is for the tack. One of these is a signal wire, one of these is a power wire, one of these is ground, and one of these is light. So one of these is going to go to this switch, along with one of each one of these is going to connect into that power wire that runs to here. So this, I think it's this green one, and obviously the one over here, and one for this, because I got to get that figured out too, is all going to run to the parking light side of this switch. So those lights all come on when this all comes on, and the gray one will go to here. I believe this red wire here, and one of the posts down here on this. So, and that will get us our power to the gauges, and then we got to wire the other sides out, because I believe the negative side connects to the thermostat gauge. The negative over here also connects to, I think that just needs grounded out. I'm not sure. That being a voltage gauge. I actually need to look see how to hook up a voltage gauge. I've never done it before. There's a lot with this project that's new to me that I've never done. So it's an interesting time. All right, let's shut up. I'm gonna throw it in like hyperlapse, and we'll get the start of all those wires done and get it figured out. I think we're gonna start with the lighting side of things, so that's gonna be easier, and then we'll get the power fed through everything. Wouldn't be a wiring project if I didn't need to go to O'Reilly's and get something. So I thought I knew how I wanted to do it, but I changed it up at the last second. I thought I was going to kind of like daisy chain all of them together and make them non-disconnectable, but I've decided I don't like that idea. I want to make all of everything disconnectable. So the ground's going to basically have jump off points where like these two are going to connect into it. This one will connect into it. This one will connect into it. And I'm debating on making this one a separate one or going ahead and connecting it into these. I might do both. I'm playing with the idea. So we'll see how the first setup goes and then go from there. Alright, just to give you a little bit better of an idea of what I'm thinking so far. So here is the ground that is connected to the body down there. And this is what this is going to do. This is going to give me a point to where these two ground wires, that's still hot, can plug into that. And then I'm going to make another one of those spots. It's right here for this one. And another one down here for this one at the very end. And then I'm just going to have it run to here. Whoop. Sorry, guys. I'm not doing good with this whole filming thing today. So I'm going to throw you guys up into the tripod over there facing this direction. And let you guys actually watch what's going on for a little bit. Throw you up in hyperlapse. Whee! Alright, so I wrapped up all the positive wires in black tape after the fact, but not before I figured I'd turn these on and see if they're going to work. Now I did unhook the fuel pump with everything we got going on because it's going to be a while before we need that again. So there we go. I can hear them. They're clicking. They're on. Now if I pull this out one time, hopefully the lights come on. I think I just popped the fuse. Well, that's probably not a good sign. The moment we went to try it, the fuse popped. Alright, so after a couple minutes of fiddling here, I have determined the problem is the switch. Because the moment I pull the switch out one position, the fuse pops. I've checked the ground is fine. I've disconnected the lights. There is nothing connected to this switch right now that would be pulling power anywhere. And it does not matter which way it's wired, it does the same thing. So there's something internally wrong with that switch. So I guess our next step is we're going to run to O'Reilly's and see if they have a switch, because I ordered that one off of eBay. It's very upsetting that I need a new one, given the fact that that is a brand new switch. Now, maybe I had it wired backwards the first time and I did some damage to it. Maybe I wired it backwards the second time and I did some damage to it. But that wouldn't explain why I had the problem the first time. So, I guess we are off to O'Reilly's quick. So, I'm a dumbass. I thought I knew what I was doing on this one. I didn't. Some of you have probably already yelled at the screen calling me an idiot. And I would agree with you. Some of you are also probably scratching your head along with me. Some of you have probably been shouting at the screen to not do that. But yeah, I figured out what I did wrong. Let me show you. So, as some of you have probably already figured out, or already knew, that doesn't need a ground wire. That's why it was popping, because it had a ground wire just short-circuiting the whole thing. Because I'm a dumbass. This right here is to send power to the tail lights, not a ground. This is the main power in feed. Then you got park, low, and high on the other side. Now I'm wiring all my dash lights into the park lights. So hopefully now, if I'm not stupid, which I'm not holding my breath on that one, if I turn the key on, and I pull the switch once, we have lights. We have a light. Why don't we have all the lights? We have one really good light. Where are the rest of the lights? Why don't we have them? Alright, that was actually fairly easy to figure out. The oil pressure light, it's there, you just can't see it because it's too dark, or too light, and the light's not good enough. These ones, the ground wire come disconnected, so that makes sense. Yeah, there we go. See, I told you guys last video I was afraid that getting into what I'm doing now was going to be the hard part. And now you see why. Because I'm a dumbass. Okay. Let's start figuring out the wiring for the rest of it now. Alright, the next set of things we're going to wire should be relatively easy. I hope. Because all we're going to do is power ground, wherever that one went to, which is already done. Ground wire is already done. So we got to do power, ground, and ground. And now we're going to make a new ground wire for those ones. This one will be fine the way it is. It probably should have been a separate one, but it'll be okay. And then we've got to run the tack signal wire. And we've got to run a signal wire from the water temp gauge up to the water temp gauge. So we're going to try to do the power and ground situation for these similar to how we did it for the power and ground for the lights. That way it's all disconnectable from each other for the most part. Probably wire these two together like we did the other one. That one will be separate. Oil pressure needs nothing. And we're going to run the power that way to get to the wire over there, and it'll be a separate connection from that wire to these. And the ground will probably go ahead and come down here and pair where this one is. It should be relatively simple. It should honestly look the exact same as doing these ones did. But we'll see. Alright, after a little bit of work, and I did it off camera just for simplicity's sake, I now have tack power, voltmeter power, and ground, and the power and ground are both hooked up for the water temp gauge as well, and they're tacked into the car itself. So now we come around to the front here and we turn on the key. We have volts, and the tack starts to do tack things. That was cool. It flutters, and then it does the thing. Then it does that. Then when you shut it off, it drops back down to 0 at some point. So yeah, those are showing some potential. The voltage meter working definitely makes me feel good, because I've never done that before. The tack, we have one more wire to hook up on, and the temp, we have one more wire to hook up. So I think that's what we're going to do next. Now, this is where a little bit of foresight and thinking about what I was doing while I was doing it, thinking ahead, would have been nice, because my signal wire is green. One of my power wires going to the relays is also green. Because I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that being an issue or a thing that I needed to worry about. So they're both going to be green. Just because I don't want to change the color of the tack signal wire at the tack and have to remember it twice. So it is what it is. It's not like they're going to the same exact spot, so while it will take a little bit of effort to remember, it shouldn't take a lot. I can also label them, like maybe put some black tape on one of them every so far or something, and that will help. Overall, by the end of the day, I'm not worried about it. It's not going to be that big a deal. Now, when we get into lights and stuff, that's where I'm very concerned about what is what color. And at that point, we'll be a little bit more concerned. So I think like headlights are going to be purple, tail lights are going to be orange, brake lights will probably be yellow, something along those lines. So I can very clearly know what light is what. Because I've got 10 colors to work with at that point, and I'll use all of them if I need to. So, yeah. Alright. Let's get these wires done. Alright, I saved you guys the hassle of watching me make another crimp connection for the 1000th time. So, we now have our wire ran from our temp sensor and for our coil, or not coil, but our RPM signal wire. This is hooked to the negative side of the battery, goes up and through and around, and connects to the signal wire coming out of the tach. Then the signal wire for the water temp sensor just comes from there and connects to the third post here on the water temp gauge. That should be all the wiring we need to do for the gauges. Okay, let me rephrase that. That's all the wiring we need to do for these gauges. I did make a small mistake. As you guys remember me saying, I wanted to go ahead and put a plug in back behind here for this guy. I forgot that. I literally just remembered it right now this second. So what's going to happen is when we do probably the cigarette lighter, I'm going to wire it in then, if I don't try to go ahead and wire it into some of this now off camera. So that way all the gauges are done. But what I think we're going to do is we're going to hook the fuel pump back up, get it to start. That way we can see if the tach works. We already seen the volt gauge works. And maybe see if the temp gauge is going to work. I don't know how long I want to let it run to do that. So let's get that done and get it started and see what happens. All right, so we have everything hooked up. I hooked the fuel pump back up. So when I turn the key on, we should hear the fuel pump. There we go. Tach doing its thing. Everything lights up. Shook. Tach seems to be doing tach things. Oh, and it changes color. Look at that. That says we're getting 14 volts. That's probably not good. I don't know how much I trust the tach. It shows we got oil pressure. We'll let it sit here and idle for a couple. It does sound like we got some like parking going on. So, but everything does seem to be working. Car seems to be running okay. So, yep, tach definitely shows we're getting 15 volts. That's not good. So I gotta figure that out. I don't know why we would be getting that much power. So, I wonder if there's a way to dumb that down. So, definitely something we gotta figure out, because if this is seeing anywhere near that, that's definitely a problem. So, now the thing is, we just gotta wait and see if we have a water temp gauge. We're gonna give it a few minutes to run, because the car needs to run anyway. And we'll see what happens with the temp gauge. So, but sounds like it's running okay. So, good idle, supposedly. Oh, we'll be back in a couple. I'm going to let it warm up a little bit. So we've been running for a while now. I didn't catch it on camera, but the temp gauge did start bouncing around. So I'm going to assume our temp sensor is bad. I don't know what that spike was there on the tach. Maybe I need to go back through some of my wiring. It could also be, I'm questioning whether or not the system's getting overcharged currently. From what I've read online, that is okay. So that might be fine, but I don't know how it's reacting to some of the other stuff. So I did figure out how to set the tach as well. So the tach is now set to 4 cylinders, so it does show it revving a bit more than it did before. So I still don't know if that's really enough. We're going to try out of curiosity here. Set it to 3 cylinders and see what happens. Yeah. So it's on the right setting. There we go. All of our gauges lit up. Oh man, that makes me happy. So oil pressure gauge is moving. Temp gauge is like rock solid, or not temp gauge, but volt gauge is rock solid. This is a bit upsetting, but I had a feeling that was going to be a thing. So now we just got to play around with this and figure out what to do about the sensor. Hey, that key don't do anything anymore. And we can't get it out. And everything shuts off with the key. Put the key in. It all kicks right back on. I like the fact that I was able to change that light color. So now they all kind of match. It is cool. Shows you how much I've read about the stuff that I bought. It's adjustable the way it is. So there we go. Happy days. So we have a temp gauge, and as you can see, it's going up. And while the solution might not be perfect, it does work, and that's what matters. Since I have no heater box anymore, that was otherwise useless. Now it is not useless. Does look like it's leaking a little bit, but hey, we can work with that. We can fix leaks. We can't fix that not coming out of the block. So since that don't want to come out of the block, this became necessary. And for what ended up being a $14 solution for me, that would have been a $40 solution for anyone else. I really like the wife cards discount. Just saying. That will solve that problem fairly well. And with that, that is all of the gauges, with the exception of this little guy, hooked up and working. That makes me pretty freaking happy. Alright, I knew I said it was not important for this video, because it's not. But it didn't feel right not having it. Yep. We got a Speedo. And I think... Nope, I can't move it fast enough to make it register or anything. But it's there. And it works. Along with the rest of the gauges. I feel a little bit better now. There we go. That is every gauge that the MGB absolutely needs working. And I say it that way because, well, we still don't have a gas gauge. and I don't know how quick we're going to get a gas gauge. I'm not overly concerned with a gas gauge, as crazy as that sounds. They get decent gas mileage. I've never really had that much of an issue running out of gas with one. So we'll get to it eventually. That also means I need a new sending unit for the tank and stuff, and I haven't got any of that ordered. So it's just, that's not one I can go, well, it's feasible. No, it's not. It's really not. Because I highly doubt the sending unit and the tank's any good. So, but everything else works. We got volts, we got attack, we got speedo, we got water temp, we got oil pressure. We're good. And we got keyed ignition that works. And we've got power to run to everything else done. This is going a lot smoother than I thought it would. The wiring, hang on. What seems to be the problem, ma'am? You talking about the broken truck again? That you now have everything tangled up into? What is that? Yeah, there's a Snickers wrapper in there where someone's been sneaking candy. Yeah. And busted. But yeah, so at this point, this is all we're going to try to do for this video. That actually went a lot smoother than I thought it was going to. The next video, we're going to start on the lights. I believe we're going to start specifically on the tail lights, because those are the ones I am more concerned about having, is tail lights and brake lights, than I am so much headlights. Because without headlights or turn signals, I can drive it during the day with tail lights and brake lights. So, the bare minimum brake lights. That is the absolute bare minimum you need to be able to drive a car around town. If you care. So, that's going to be the next video. Maybe we'll get the headlights done then too if it goes this easy. We'll see. I don't know. This is getting cranked out a lot faster than I thought it was going to. Which means I got to order parts for other stuff. Because I'm running out of stuff to do on the MG now. We may have to go on to the interior before we get it to where it's drivable. Because I thought the wiring was going to take longer. I also thought the wiring was going to cost a little less. We'll do a stereo. That'll burn up some time, and I got parts laying around for that. So yeah, alright. So until next time, guys. Me and the little one, I'll see you then. Have fun. Can you tell everyone bye? Bye. I will see you next time. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Enjoy your weekend, guys.